Hey guys, Kate 420 back again. Quick video. Disappointing. About 2 years ago, I picked up on this 13 Baltimore City School thing. So, yeah, about November 2017, Baltimore City Schools, out of all 13 of them, there were zero students who were considered proficient in math. Do you have any idea what an utter failure it takes to to have zero students? Not one, right? Well, there's more. This Project Baltimore thing it's been around. I believe it was the local Baltimore station that started it. But this investigation found that students who missed more than 100 days of school were allowed to graduate. Says there are this is right now, September 22nd, no, 2019. Typically 180 days in a school year, which translates to roughly 45 per quarter or 90 per semester. In Baltimore, students that missed 100 days or more, or over half of the school year, were allowed to graduate last spring. Let's see if it lets us show it to you.
In this school, you have seen grades being changed.
Why is it doing that?
Project Baltimore's long-term investigation into area schools causing controversy among city school leadership. Last week, the Project Baltimore investigative team uncovered evidence of another city school, Joseph C. Briscoe Academy, allowing students who missed more than 100 days of class to still walk across the stage during the 2019 high school graduation.
Did this student deserve to graduate on the day he graduated?
No.
Well, that story prompted a scathing and inaccurate letter written late last week by the Baltimore City Schools CEO to the Briscoe school community.
Project Baltimore reached out to City Schools before the story aired, but City Schools declined to do an interview.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, there's a history here. A lack of transparency from Baltimore City Schools that ultimately led to a lawsuit with Fox 45 over public records.
Fox 45 had to sue just to get public records from the school system to find out how widespread grade changing really is and who is being held accountable. But even at trial, City Schools did not disclose everything.
There is a shoot the messenger type of mindset in this city.
A strong letter from the city school CEO prompts a strong response on a popular Baltimore morning radio show.
Instead of trying to put lipstick on a pig and continue to say how great we are and how much we're improving, let's address the problems, the significant problems in our school system.
Outrage after City Schools attempts to discredit a Project Baltimore report on Joseph C. Briscoe Academy in Northwest Baltimore. Our investigation found students who were absent or late to school more than 100 days. One who failed more than half his classes, yet still wore a cap and gown at the 2019 Briscoe graduation. North Avenue declined an interview for this story. But after it aired, CEO Dr. Sonia Santelises released this letter on Twitter, accusing Fox 45 of publicly undermining the efforts of students, the latest in a lengthy history of refusing to answer our questions.
This is an issue of transparency and accountability. Government is there to serve the people.
Amen.
Scott Martyr represented Fox 45 in February when our lawsuit against city schools went to trial. Project Baltimore have filed a public records request for all grade-changing investigations done by North Avenue since 2010. But city schools refused to hand them over. What they did give us was heavily redacted, some pages entirely blacked out.
This is kind of a poke in the eye and kind of a pretty obnoxious.
Lucy Dalglish, Dean of Journalism at the University of Maryland, sat down with Project Baltimore in November, 3 months before a judge ruled in our favor, finding city schools willfully and knowingly violated the law by withholding those documents. The judge ordered them to reimburse our legal fees.
Maryland requires that you show bad faith, and quite honestly, I don't think I've ever seen bad faith more obvious. I mean, this is Exhibit A.
It wasn't until the judge ordered city schools to release the reports that we learned there were far more grade-changing investigations than city schools revealed in court. What started as 10 is now up to 22. To date, city schools has spent nearly $200,000 fighting Project Baltimore in court over those records. And we still don't know who is responsible for making the decisions to withhold the documents in the first place.
Wow.
The city school CEO has refused to sit down for an interview with Project Baltimore in more than a year and a half. I believe taxpayers have a right to know who made that decision to violate the law, according to the judge. So this past summer, we signed up for public comment. Please sign below. At a city school board meeting. Has that person or have those people been held accountable? Our questions went unanswered.
Just as a legislator, I think in reference to all government agencies, that's very important. Accountability, but also transparency. So as you stated, when the taxpayers are footing the bill, I think that those two items should always be there.
At more than $16,000 per student, according to the U.S. Census, city schools spends the third most per student in America when comparing the country's 100 largest school systems. 75% of its budget comes from state taxpayers. But if you want to know how your money is being spent, city schools isn't talking.
People don't trust the process and they're not sure that it's working for them, or they don't see how it benefits them. The best thing that we can do as legislators is make sure that we make sure the government is performing, but also make sure it's accountable, transparent, and people feel like it's working for them.
Chris, it's hard to believe the city school's CEO hasn't sat down for an interview in, more than a year and a half?
Yeah, more than a year and a half. And in that time, Kai and Jennifer, we have done some hard-hitting, serious stories on issues in Baltimore City Public Schools, and we believe the taxpayers and parents deserve to hear from the CEO on those topics, especially when it involves tax dollars. Now, Baltimore City Schools has already spent nearly $200,000 on the lawsuit with Fox 45. And coming up Monday on Fox 45 News at 10, we're going to tell you why you, the taxpayer, will be footing the bill for even more.
Oh, boy.
Until then, we want to hear from you. If you have a story that you want to share concerning education, something you want us to investigate.
My dog's dreaming. So here's a little bit more about the grade rigging part of it. Sonia Santelias accuses Project Baltimore of sensationalism and has violated even the lowest standard of decency. That was her answer, the CEO, when he just asked all those questions. That was her response, the Sonia Santelias lady. And it says, I wanted you to see this. Like, the fact that that chart they showed during the thing, I almost wanted to stop it because it says they spend the most amount of money on New York City students. And to me, New York City's probably right behind Baltimore. And when it comes to failing its students, this has to do with what the city spends per pupil a year. This has to do with what the city spends on its teachers and its staff, because the pupils aren't getting any more or less value for their dollar. That is for sure. Now, when all 13 schools, remember, all 13 schools or 13 Baltimore City schools didn't have one student proficient in math. This says that 6 students graduated this year. One was late 110 days in his senior year and failed science, but his transcript shows he passed with a D-. He couldn't have any work because he wasn't there. When it was explained the student never did extra work, the question is asked, what can we do? The response was, so we have to do a grade change. Is the final grade in there right now? Yes, someone replies. These are actual secret recordings of grade changes being done, guys. Wow. Project Baltimore requested an interview. It says we received a request, but we disagree on your reporter's approach. Given the context for denying an interview. Yeah, because you got caught. They're saying that because it's a Fox station and it's Sinclair broadcast group, it's a pro-Trump conservative news station. Are you kidding me? That has nothing. Do you hear that, Baltimore? Your kids don't mean shit because the news station actually caring about your kids is a pro-Trump news station. So F your kids, and we don't care where your tax dollars are being spent, but it's not going to be on educating your children like you thought they were. So that's what this is saying. End of story.